In May 1921, a man until then little known outside the artistic circles of New York plunged into the depths of an experience that defies explanation. Walter Russell, a self-taught polymath, composer, painter, and sculptor, entered a kind of trance for 39 days. Upon awakening, his words and notes not only shook what was understood as real, but planted seeds for questions that remain alive to this day. What could have happened in that near-coma? And why do his revelations now resonate 100 years later amid debates about consciousness and the nature of the universe? During this mysterious period, Russell claimed to have accessed what he called the source of all knowledge. He described his experience as a journey through the most intimate corners of the cosmos and the mind, where there was no separation between what is perceived and the perceiver. In pages and more pages of notebooks, he scribbled ideas that seemed to belong to the future. Matter, according to him, was not solid substance but crystallized light. Time was not linear but an infinite spiral of present moments. Consciousness, in turn, was not a byproduct of the physical brain, but the very fabric of the universe. For Russell, death was not the end, but rather a return to the luminous origin of everything. These ideas broke with both traditional science and the dogmatic spirituality of their time. Imagine looking at a stone and seeing not something inert, but a frozen moment of light in motion, held there by conscious intention. Russell saw the universe as a vast field of living mind, pulsing in an eternal cycle of expansion and contraction, like breathing. Everything that exists, he suggested, is a manifestation of this mental pulse. Life and death are just phases. Dying is simply the light returning to its unmanifest state, about to shine again in new forms. What if indeed the mind shaped reality? What if the universe were a thought, an idea in constant renewal, and not a cold machine of disconnected atoms? What if time were merely an illusion created by our limited perception, and the true reality were an eternal now, where past and future collapse into pure presence? These questions still challenge scientists, philosophers, and spiritual seekers today. Among the great names of his time, only one seemed to understand the magnitude of Russell's discoveries: Nikola Tesla. The legendary inventor, himself a visionary and misunderstood, is said to have advised Russell to hide his manuscript for 1,000 years, fearing that the world, still immature, was not ready for such truths. For Tesla, Russell had touched the secret core of existence, the common origin between light, matter, and consciousness. But time went on and science continued its course. For decades, Russell's ideas remained on the sidelines, seen sometimes as metaphysical poetry, sometimes as mystical delirium. However, the world changed, and new discoveries began to whisper something familiar. Today, cutting-edge theories surprisingly approach Russell's views. David Bohm, a 20th-century quantum physicist, proposed the existence of an implicate order, a fundamental, indivisible reality where everything is connected, anticipating Russell's one-mind cosmos. Bohm saw the universe not as a collection of parts, but as a dynamic whole, where each fragment contains the whole, in a kind of cosmic hologram. Modern physics also explores ideas like Orch-Or by Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, suggesting that consciousness emerges from quantum processes in neurons, resonating with Russell's notion that mind and matter are inseparable. There is also the movement called quantum mysticism, which seeks bridges between particle physics, information, light, and consciousness. Although most physicists remain cautious about these intersections, it is undeniable that questions like what is reality and what is the role of the observer have never been more in vogue. Russell, with his vision of intertwined light, mind, and matter, seems to have anticipated debates that are still far from consensus. Why, then, were his ideas largely ignored in his time? In '86, when he published The Universal One, his magnum opus, Russell was seen by many as eccentric, even delirious. Orthodox science rejected his theses. Society, immersed in the paradigms of materialism and rationalism, was not ready to embrace such a radical cosmology. However, today his book is being rediscovered by readers seeking bridges between frontier science and spirituality, between reason and intuition. This raises a central question. Where does genius end and madness begin? Perhaps, as Tesla suggested, there are truths so profound that they can only be fully understood after a certain collective maturation. Russell may have been a visionary ahead of his time, a pioneer whose ideas today inspire physicists, artists, meditators, and the curious around the world. As modern physics faces its own limits, trying to unite relativity and quantum mechanics, deciphering the mystery of consciousness and dark matter, Russell's words resonate with renewed freshness. Is matter really crystallized light? Can thought truly shape the cosmos? And after all, wasn't Tesla right in suggesting that certain truths need time to blossom? These questions, more than definitive answers, invite reflection. What we see as solid, permanent, and separate may be just an appearance, a play of lights and shadows on the stage of the universal mind. And if so, each of us is simultaneously actor and author of this cosmic drama. In the end, Walter Russell's legacy is not just a collection of bold ideas, but an invitation to rethink everything we believe we know about reality, consciousness, and our own role in the universe. Is the mind the true fruit, or is the mind a consequence of matter? Perhaps the answer lies beyond words, somewhere between a particle of light and a flash of consciousness. If you are captivated by stories that blur the boundaries between science and imagination, join us on this journey. Share your ideas, question, dive deeper. In an era of dizzying discoveries, it may be precisely the curious gaze that allows us to see beyond the visible and hear the call of voices like Walter Russell's. Voices that, coming from the future or an altered state of consciousness, challenge us to dream and to awaken.